In this video, I'm going to show you how to fit a door handle in the UK. We've done another video showing how to put the hinges on your door and how to trim your door down to size to fit in your casing, and we'll attach both those videos somewhere on the screen. First thing you're going to want to do is mark your height. So a standard height for your door handle is 1,000 up, so I'll put a mark there. The only time this will vary is if you already have an existing latch chiseled out the door casing, but this is a fresh door casing, so we can set our door handle at a standard height of 1,000, and that height is to the handle spindle. So our handle is going to sit exactly 1,000 up from the floor. Now that we've marked the height, we need to square our mark across using our combination square. So we've got our mark 1,000 up, we use our combination square to just square that line round. Next, we need to find the centre of the door, and to do that we use our marking gauge. Off your marking gauge up to the door, roughly find the centre. So a marking gauge slides in and out, and then it's got a spiked point on the end which you can use to indent the middle of the door. And then when you come to drill your hole, you can put your flat spade bit in that point. So set your marking gauge somewhere near the middle, and just below this line you want to put a mark. The centre of our door is between those 2 points. So just adjust your marking gauge one more time so that your point sits in between. We've got our point there. Do it on both sides of the door, and then you know that your point is exactly in the centre of the door. Then we can just do a line along there. I normally tend to do it again on the other side. So I know that that groove is dead centre in the middle of the door. Now we can take our latch. We need to obviously set the latch into the middle of the door. Always take note, the smooth rounded side of the latch is the side that's going to swing round into the door casing. So our latch is going to go that way round. It's not going to go that way round, otherwise the latch will just bind against the casing. You always want the smooth side so that the latch locates into the keeper. So now that you've marked the centre of the door and you've also marked a height, the next thing you need to do is drill out for your latch. We're going to select a spade bit, which is just a little bit wider than our latch, and then we're going to drill out into the door. So this is a 20mm spade bit for our 3-inch latch. And so that we get the depth correct, we're just going to use some insulation tape and mark on our flat bit how deep to drill our hole. We're going to offer our latch up to our flat bit. We only want to go this deep with our hole just a little bit past the back of the latch, so we know that the back of the hole isn't going to bind on the back of the latch. So now we've got our depth set on our flat bit, we can drill into our door. We're just going to put this point into the groove that we've already marked. What I often like to do is put a little wedge under the door so it stays perfectly stable while I drill out the hole. So we've got a piece of MDF there, got a little one of our white packers, wedge that into place so we know our door's stable. Now we can start to drill our 20mm hole at 1,000 up directly into the centre of our door. And we're going to drill the hole just up to the line of this insulation tape, then we know our latch will fit. We've now drilled out our door hole, and we're just going to check if the latch fits. As you can see, widthways our latch fits in there neatly, but we still need to take a little bit more height out of our hole. So we want to square this hole up, we want to just elongate it a little bit, because our latch is slightly longer than it is wide. So we put our 20mm hole in to get our width correct, and now we just need to go in with our 3/4 inch chisel and just elongate this hole. So we've got our sharp chisel, we're just going to extend this hole. It doesn't matter if you angle your chisel slightly downwards, because if this hole is slightly wider at the back, it doesn't matter. What you don't want to do is have your chisel angled upwards and create a pinch point on the back of the latch. So if you angle it down slightly, that's more beneficial in this scenario. If you look at your latch, you'll often find there's a point on the chisel where you can work out how deep the latch needs to be. So you can see the back of the latch lines up with this point here on the chisel. So we know we're going to have to chisel at least this deep if we want our latch to fit in. After you've chiseled a little bit out the door, you can go back in with your flat bit or your spade bit to clear out the hole. Now that we've made our hole longer, we'll just see if the latch will fit in place. Our latch fits in there nicely, And we're now ready to draw our outline of our latch. You want to make sure that this gap is equal to this gap. One thing I've noticed is my latch wants to move further across the right hand side. So I'll just take a little bit more off this side with my chisel, just so my latch fits further across. Off the latch in, and now you can draw around your latch. Now that you've got an outline of the latch, we're going to set the depth of our palm router to the depth of our latch faceplate. So we'll just adjust the depth on our router. As you can see, our router is now taking out just the thickness of the front of the latch. Now I need to put the guard fence back on the router, and I need to set this so that this router cutter just cuts to the inside of that pencil line. You don't want to cut right to your pencil line, you just want to be a millimetre back from it, as you can always tidy this up with your chisel afterwards. So we've now got our router cutter set so that it just cuts to the inside of that line when we offer it up in this position, and then we offer it up at this side, it just cuts to the inside of that line. Now we're going to go ahead and router out this faceplate. As you can see, we've got fairly close to our pencil lines. Now all we need to do is chisel this out right up to the pencil line. Then we'll offer our latch in. Sometimes you find the latches have these bits of punched out metal at the back. Sometimes when you try and offer the latch in with that way around, it seems like the latch isn't going into place when actually it normally would. So I always like to try my latch in the opposite way, just so I can get a gauge on how well it fits. So offer that up. Seem to be okay height wise. It just seems to be a little bit tight in width. So we're just going to use our sharp chisel and just take a fine slither off this edge so that the latch will just fit in its width. You can always offer your latch in like that just to gauge the width, and I always offer it in that way around, and then you can see just how well it fits. When you come to fit your door, your latch will obviously go in that way around, and you'll need to bear in mind you'll need to drill out a little bit of your door just to accommodate this punched out piece of sheet metal here. We're going to take a little thin slit off this side as well, just to keep it equal. It's only about 0.5 millimetre, and then the latch should just slot in. Now we'll offer our latch into place. As you can see, our latch now fits perfectly on our door. It's held in there securely. It feels flush against there. Now we can be confident. We can pilot our holes and secure our latch into position. But before we do that, we need to mark out for our spindle that connects our two handles together. So our latch is going to sit in the door in that position. So what we need to do is we need to line our latch up like that, as that's the position it will end up being in. I like to do this roughly, and then I do it again with a combination square. So make sure that your latch is lined up. This here is lined up with your rebate you've just made, and then just do a little mark in the hole that your spindle is going to go in. This will just give you a rough guide, and then repeat the procedure for the other side. Line up your latch with the right height that it's going in. So the top of this latch wants to line up with the top of your rebate, and then again you want to just mark out roughly where this spindle is going. So you're marking in that spindle hole of the latch. So that's one way to do it. I always like to do this and double check it. So I like to take my combination square and I like to set it to this, from the front of the faceplate, which is this edge of the door, to halfway on the spindle. That's flush there, halfway on the spindle. Then I can lock that off. Now I've still got my mark here. This should be the centre of our rebate. I can go off that mark that we made at the very beginning. I can offer my combination square up, and I can just do a little mark on the edge of my combination square. So this mark here is now the exact dead centre of where our spindle is going to be for our latch. So we've done two ways of checking exactly where that spindle hole wants to be drilled out. It's very important you get that right, otherwise when you come to put your handles on, if they don't quite cover it, you'll end up with a hole in your brand new door. So we were using a 20mm flat bit to drill this hole for our latch. So now we're going to drill in with our 16mm bit, which is just slightly wider than our door spindle. Our handle is going to sit there. As you can see, our 16mm bit is just a bit wider than that hole. So we're going to drill through from this side. We're not going to drill all the way through, otherwise we'll risk tearing the door out to the side. Drill through that side, drill through that side, and then we've now got our through and through holes for our spindle to connect our two handles together when we fit the latch. We now have our hole drilled, which is going to accommodate our spindle. Handle like that with our spindle, and that's going to connect through the latch. So now that we've got that hole in there, we can fit the latch, and obviously we don't need to worry about drilling into our latch. We've got that hole pre-drilled out. So now we can offer the latch in the right way around. So we're going to offer it up to the rebate. We're just going to make sure that's exactly where we want it to be. Make sure it's lined up perfectly with your rebate that you chiseled out before, and then you just want to mark the center of your holes in your latch, and then you're going to pilot these holes. You're going to countersink them out at the back to allow for these indentations on the back of the latch faceplate. So we're just going to use a 2mm pilot bit, which is just a bit less than the diameter of our screws. And we're going to try and keep this as straight as possible and drill our top and bottom hole. So because we've got these indentations, we'll also need to countersink our holes so that our latch fits flush with the edge of our door. Put that in your drill, and then you just want to countersink out these two holes. Put your countersink where your pilot bit was. Countersink the bottom hole, countersink your top hole. And now we know that our little press metal isn't going to impede the latch faceplate from sitting flush. Make sure your hole's cleared out. Off your latch into position. And now, when you're confident that's sitting flush or going to sit flush, you can add your screws to secure your faceplate. So because we've piloted our holes, these should just screw straight in, and there's no risk we're going to split this oak here. If you don't pilot your holes, you risk splitting your oak down the grain when you put your screws into position. And now you can see our latch is sitting perfectly flush with the edge of our door. We've done a nice neat job of chiseling round. And as we pan round to the side, hopefully we'll see the spindle hole directly line up with the middle of our hole we just drilled out. Now we've got our latch screwed into place, we can now start to fit our handles.